I just purchased this over-the-counter medication from the same CVS using my government-issued ID. Now, when Payano tried to do the same thing, he ran into a problem.
Why would getting some simple over-the-counter medicine have to escalate to immigration status?
Drugstores require identification for certain medications to protect against drug abuse. It was after Payano showed an employee his Puerto Rico-issued ID when the problems arose.
The employee, she came up and she asked for my ID. I gave her my ID. It says Puerto Rico on the top of it. And she kind of phased at it, and then she looked at me and she said, I need a U.S.-issued Canada or Mexico license.
Puerto Rico has been a United States territory since 1898, but Payano says the employee didn't seem to understand.
I looked at her and I said, this is a U.S.-issued license. It is from Puerto Rico. And then she asked me again, no, I need like a U.S.-issued license. And that's when I restated, this is a U.S.-issued license. Like, it's from Puerto Rico. We're a part of the United States.
Payano then showed the employee his passport, but she still wouldn't accept it. Instead, she asked for his visa.
I told her again, like, I don't need a visa. I am from Puerto Rico. Puerto Ricans are U.S. citizens.
Payano says the employee cited CVS store policy to back up her decision in not accepting his ID. He's demanding the company include Puerto Rico as a valid license and provide more education to employees.
I feel like there's a very huge lack of education in terms of the Puerto Rican history and how and why are we part of the United States. So I feel that plays into a bigger picture.
The CVS Corporation apologized for the incident and say it's currently under investigation. For now, Payano is dedicated to ensuring this never happens to anyone else.
What I want to do is to get the Puerto Rican history out there and try and get people educated about the situation so that nobody else goes through the same thing.
Payano ended up leaving the CVS pharmacy without purchasing anything, and he was able to get help through Purdue University's Student Health Center. In West Lafayette, Micah Upshaw, News 18.
The whole thing just kind of smells fishy, you know.
The fishy situation started with a phone call.
Officers were dispatched because somebody called 911 wanting a check well being done on a person who was laying down on the sidewalk.
This is how police found the man when they arrived.
How you doing?
What's up, man? Yeah, you. What's up?
You doing all right?
As you can see in this video, the man sits up. Then officers get his name and let him go. When they alerted the man that his phone was still on the ground, he refused to pick it up. That's when they felt something was odd.
Every phone, man.
Did you return on you?
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah.
It's your phone, bro. So why don't you grab your phone?
I don't have to.
He starts to pick it up, and then from my perspective, remembers that he's not supposed to pick up his phone because there's our YouTuber right there. They wanted to check on the status of that phone to see, was it really his or was it stolen? Is it stolen and that's why he's trying to separate himself from it? So they used a pretty commonly used investigative technique. They dialed 911.
According to Sergeant Mike Brown, when a person abandons property, they surrender their expectation of privacy, which means there is no requirement for a search warrant or consent.
In this particular case, there are some indicators to me that this may have been a fabricated call. He's got a phone with him and decides to leave it there and walk away from it. That's peculiar. And then, of course, there's the coincidental arrival of the YouTuber that wants to show up and then give the original gentleman some curbside legal advice that, you know, quite frankly, is not 100% accurate.
Officers found the phone did in fact belong to the man and he was released. In Lafayette, Micah Upshaw, News 18.
I believe angels saved me. If it wasn't for my angels, I would be dead.
Thomas Day has been looking back on the day he almost lost his life.
I went to sleep like a normal night, right? And I was sleeping, and then all of a sudden I heard like two guns. It sounded like two firecrackers going off.
He got up to see what was going on. That's when he says he saw a man pointing a gun at his landlord, Ron Wiles.
I grabbed the gun. I threw the gun on the side, right? I put him in a chokehold, right? Had him hit the ground. And I told my landlord to call the cops.
According to his autopsy, Wiles was shot multiple times.
My landlord was like, I can't move. So during this whole time, he was stabbing me and all that, but I was not letting him go.
Day was stabbed a total of 29 times. He managed to get away, But he says it wasn't easy.
You're trying to kill me, but you can't kill me. And I called 911, I told him I got stabbed, and as soon as I did, I told him the address, and then I seen a fire coming at me. It's like, I don't know, all of a sudden there's a fire coming at me. And I said, oh yeah, by the way, there's a fire. And they said, get out the house.
Day escaped the house through a side window. He was later taken to a hospital in Indianapolis to be treated for his wounds. Police have identified Andrew Alcorns as a person of interest in the attack. He's currently behind bars at a jail in Dayton, Ohio.
So when you look at this photo, what do you see?
It just makes me mad.
Day, Wiles, and the suspect were the only people known to be there when it happened. However, Day believes there was someone or something looking out for him.
It could have been my dad, because he died of heart disease. So that could be him looking out for me.
For now, Day is looking at each day with a new perspective.
I'm enjoying the small moments. Stuff that I took for granted. That life's too short now.
What would it be like to dine with the first man on the moon?
Well, I got the phone call from President Jischke saying that Neil Armstrong was going to be in town. Would I like to have dinner with him? Of course, I paused, got my breath, took a big deep breath and said, well, sure.
State Senator Ron Alting of District 22 says it was a conversation at dinner about his cell phone that really put the astronaut's accomplishments into perspective.
The phone was on the table and he reached over and he picked the phone up and he looked at it and then he looked in my eyes and said, do you know that the technology in your iPhone is far greater than that of the Apollo that took me to the moon and back?
It wasn't only Armstrong's travel to the moon that stuck with Alting. It was the way he carried himself after his newfound fame.
He could have made millions of dollars and could have done it overnight. He also never got involved in the retail of designing any shoes or hats or t-shirts with his names on it. He never exploited what he did.
Instead, he went on to become a professor at the University of Cincinnati in Ohio. Alting says Armstrong's way of life still inspires him.
This was a man of great humility. This was a very, very humble and special man because of being humble for what he's accomplished.
Alting said he did what anyone would do if they had an opportunity to have dinner with a man who's changed history.
And what I caught myself doing over and over when we had discussions was just staring into his eyes. And I'd catch myself and stop because I kept thinking to myself, what an unbelievable opportunity I'm experiencing looking into the eyes of a man, that those eyes have seen only what a few people will see.
In West Lafayette, Micah Upshaw, News 18.
Would you ever live here again?
Probably not.
No, I will move out, definitely.
Probably.
Ross Chen and his roommate are tenants at the Hub on campus. After a month of continuous confusion with moving in and getting their keys the day before classes start, they wish they weren't.
I think it is the most expensive apartment around the Lafayette area. I think it is not worth that price.
The Hub manages apartment complexes in college towns throughout the United States. It markets to students looking for luxury off-campus living. But Chen and his roommates say that's not what they got.
And you can see a hole right here. Obviously, there is a hole. You only have a drawer without a cover. All the drawers here, but you cannot open it. No, you cannot open it.
It seems dangerous. I don't understand what is this. Can you believe that this is a new apartment?
Chen says the floor plan they paid for does not match the room they were assigned. When we reached out to the Hub, they had no answers about why the units weren't complete before students arrived. The company received a certificate of occupancy late Saturday. The communication team says they're thankful for students' patience and are working to resolve tenants' issues as they are reported.
Students are being extremely good sports about this. Like they just want this to pass. You know, they're trying to look at the bright side. They're trying to say things like, oh, you know, the staff are still very nice and friendly, even though we have to wait a lot for basic things like a mattress. But I really think that you should know because you're getting the short end of something.
The Hub promised fully furnished apartments, and while furniture was in the room, it wasn't all built. Tenant Jawan Lee was left without a mattress, among many other issues.
I have a little bed with a mattress that is not in the unit right now. There are already dents in the walls. There's chips in places. The toilet has mold in it, so I'll have to clean that. I don't know why I'm paying over $1,100 a month for this tiny studio in this kind of condition.
Lee says out-of-state students like herself and international students who don't have connections to local resources are the most affected.
They really need to shape up. You have to do better. You can't put the risks on your tenants, who are mostly young students, like people who don't know how to deal with these kinds of situations.
In West Lafayette, Micah Upshaw, News 18.